I'm incredibly proud of the president for activating the National Guard and for sending in these Marines, because these Marines are specifically trained to meet the need that we have on the ground in LA right now. And Governor Newsom has done a disservice to the state of California for many years. The people there should never elect him into a leadership position ever again.
I think the actions we asserted today, the laws that we just advanced today, run in complete contrast to what she's asserting and what she's pushing.
Picture this: California's golden boy governor, Gavin Newsom, strolling around like a shampoo commercial, and suddenly, boom. Kristi Noem storms in like a rodeo queen with receipts that make TMZ look like a church bulletin. What could she possibly know that Gavin's billion-dollar hair gel budget couldn't cover up? Spoiler: it's juicier than a reality TV finale. Grab your popcorn, because this showdown isn't politics, it's pure comedy.
So when you get a post like that by a governor, immediately, my staff and family think, what is going on? What does he mean? And we're trying to figure it out. So, this is a day and age where we've always known that words matter, but there's been real consequences that we have realized that have happened to incredible people like Charlie that we'll have to live with forever. And I hope we all learn from that. I hope we all learn that it's time to start listening to each other, having civil discourse, and stop ridiculous, irresponsible posts.
If you're enjoying, please subscribe to the channel. It helps more than you think. Gavin Newsom's life has always looked like one long cologne commercial. Perfect hair bouncing in the California sun, tailored suits tighter than his environmental regulations, and a smile that suggests he's auditioning for the role of Kendall, Governor Edition. For years, he's gotten away with running the state like it's his own exclusive wine club, serving Napa Valley Charm while the rest of California burns, drowns, or bankrupts itself trying to buy gas.
They're struggling to communicate. We're struggling to win back now the majority in the House of Representatives, and that's a big part of what I'm doing, not just today in terms of the work out here, raising money, but also raising awareness around how Donald Trump is trying to rig the midterm elections and how I fear that we will not have an election in 2028. I really mean that.
But then comes Kristi Noem, galloping in from South Dakota like she's starring in a country music video nobody asked for. She doesn't just take aim at Newsom's endless photo ops and red carpet politics. She shows up with a bucket of metaphorical ice water and dumps it right on the slick California fantasy. And the fallout? It's funnier than watching Newsom try to pretend he's relatable at a gas station while asking why unleaded isn't served.
The Department of Homeland Security is blaming Democratic politicians for a spike in recent assaults on U.S. immigration and customs officers. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem directing her ire at California Governor Gavin Newsom, posting, "Just in, our brave ICE law enforcement are now facing, as you mentioned, an 830% increase in assaults against them. This new data reflects the violence against our law enforcement in cities across the country in the last few weeks. Politicians across the country, regardless of political stripe, must condemn this. Gavin Newsom, we're looking at you."
The man built his entire career on appearances. Everything with him is optics, hair polished like a luxury Tesla, speeches dripping with Silicon Valley buzzwords, and enough hand gestures to make you think he's auditioning for a role as a backup magician. California might be collapsing under the weight of high taxes, tent cities, and wildfires that look like scenes from an apocalyptic blockbuster. But Gavin will assure you the state is thriving, as long as you don't look down at the crumbling sidewalks, the price of rent, or the fact that your U-Haul just got booked solid for a one-way trip to Texas. Kristi Noem.
Governor, when I had a bill and a policy that I thought was very important for my people in the state of South Dakota, we put an emergency clause on it. We signed it into law as soon as possible. That means that Governor Newsom doesn't think this is important. He just wants to use this to raise money. He wants to use it to go out and try to make himself feel like a big deal. And he's doing it by attacking our law enforcement officers and making their lives more dangerous.
Meanwhile, doesn't bother with the Polish. She rides in wearing cowboy boots, no filter, and the subtlety of a marching band at a yoga retreat. And when she sets her sights on Gavin, it's not the usual political jab, it's an outright demolition derby. She doesn't care about his expensive veneers or his perfectly staged press shots. No, she's pointing out the stuff nobody's supposed to say out loud, that California has become less of a dream and more of a theme park ride called Escape if you can. Watching Newsom react is priceless. The man who usually speaks like he's addressing a TED Talk full of robots suddenly starts fumbling like he's been caught using hairspray with the wrong carbon rating. He wants to brush it off, but Kristi's revelations stick like superglue. And it gets better. Every time Kristi points out another California disaster, Whether it's the human tent cities lining the boulevards, the power grid collapsing like a Jenga tower, or taxes high enough to make even Hollywood producers move to Nevada, Newsom does that thing where he smiles way too hard, like a waiter insisting your burnt steak is the chef special.
First, your reaction to bad day for you.
Well, it was cryptic, and it was really menacing, I would say, Sean. It immediately panicked my family and friends. Within, I would say, a couple of minutes of that being posted, I started to get text messages and phone calls, family, my kids saying, "Are you okay, Mom? Are you fine?" They know the threats that I've had. They know the threats that they've had, the things that have happened to them because of politicians like this that say things and somebody grabs onto them that has an agenda, the cartels and criminals.
He thinks he can charm his way out of reality, but charm doesn't put out wildfires, and it definitely doesn't keep families from fleeing the state faster than he can reapply his hair gel. The real comedy, though, is how Newsom has been secretly campaigning as the backup president. You know, the guy who pretends is not running while mysteriously showing up on national TV every other night, giving speeches that sound like they were written by a Netflix PR intern. The whole time, he's positioning himself as America's savior, until Kristi flips on the lights and exposes the fact that his track record in California is less savior and more serial arsonist. Imagine trying to sell your brand as leadership excellence when the evidence looks like a blooper reel. Businesses leaving in droves, energy policies that leave people charging Teslas with diesel generators, and streets that look like open-air escape rooms. Yet Gavin smiles through it all, hoping no one notices that the emperor's new clothes are just another designer suit bought on California taxpayer funds. While he scolds small towns in the Midwest about climate responsibility, he's jetting off to international conferences like a climate change influencer, sipping champagne while California's forests spontaneously combust. It's the kind of two-faced double act that makes you wonder if his true calling wasn't politics but auditioning for a soap opera. What makes it so funny is that Gavin actually thought...
Every time I'm in a room with our law enforcement officers, I'm talking to them before they go out on our streets, I'm just overwhelmed by the fact that all of these young men and women have families, that they all want to go home to their families at night too, and that people like Gavin Newsom are making it much more dangerous for them just to go do their jobs.
You know, I thought I knew Gavin. I really did. And I really expected more from him. I don't know why. He seems particularly tone deaf. This was 2 days after, or a week after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, a week and a couple of days after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It seems tone deaf.
Nobody outside California was paying attention. He assumed he could just stroll into the national spotlight, flash that perfect smile, and everyone would swoon. But Kristi decided to turn on the giant LED screen behind him, showing the receipts, the failed policies, the crumbling infrastructure, the exodus of Californians leaving faster than tickets for a Taylor Swift concert. And the timing couldn't be better. Newsom's been floating around like a backup quarterback, waiting for the starter to pull a hamstring, polishing his speeches and rehearsing his "I'm just here to serve" face in the mirror. Kristi comes along and basically says, "Hold up. Before you try to run the country, maybe explain why people can't run their dishwashers after 7 p.m. in your state without the power going out." It's devastating because it's so obvious. The fallout is spectacular. Suddenly, all the glossy magazine spreads and carefully staged press conferences look hollow. The man who wanted to be the fresh, modern face of American politics now looks more like the guy you hired to sell you beachfront property in the desert. Kristi doesn't even have to be polished about it.
California Governor Gavin Newsom's crew of keyboard warriors from posting, quote, "Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day today. You're welcome, America," on X on Saturday. It's inexplicable why people are so tone deaf. Every indication is the left has no intention of toning down this radical rhetoric. That post was immediately referred to the Secret Service for a threat assessment. And by the way, Kristi Noem has already been put in government housing because of threats. What some have perceived as a veiled threat was apparently some sort of sick, promotion for this bill.
The bluntness makes it sting more. She just shrugs, points, and says, "This is the guy you want in charge." And the silence afterward is louder than Gavin's last climate summit speech. What's truly hilarious is that Gavin keeps trying to clap back in that overly rehearsed politician meets model way of his. You can almost hear the staffers whispering lines into his earpiece while he desperately tries to spin his failures into success stories. He wakes up in the morning, looks in the mirror, and thinks he's one camera pan away from becoming America's sweetheart. Newsom talks about affordable housing like his Santa Claus handing out condos like candy canes, except when you check the receipts, the only people who can afford to live in California are tech bros, billionaires, and people who discovered Bitcoin back in 2010. The rest are living in cars, tents, or planning their escape routes. And Kristi doesn't miss a beat in pointing out that California...
I want to now talk about a social media post by the California governor, Gavin Newsom's press office. And it may be the target of a Secret Service investigation. A cryptic X post said Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day. You're welcome, America. It drew swift criticism from California's acting U.S.
California's housing plan looks more like an episode of Survivor. Gavin calls it progress, but progress shouldn't require people to bid against raccoons for space under a freeway overpass. Then there's the crime issue. California under Gavin has turned into a live-action experiment in what happens if you remove consequences. Smash-and-grab robberies are now so common they might as well be listed as tourist attractions. This is a clearance sale on common sense. But it doesn't stop there. Gavin's obsession with climate optics is the stuff of parody. He loves rolling out big green initiatives that sound futuristic but operate like Flintstones technology. He bans gas-powered cars in the name of saving the planet, only for people to end up charging their eco-friendly vehicles with gas generators, creating an environmental paradox so absurd it deserves its own Netflix comedy special. Kristi highlights it like it's the punchline of the century, a governor bragging about green policies while his citizens roast marshmallows over wildfire ashes. And then there's Gavin's favorite trick, blaming everyone else. Ask him why Californians are leaving the state in record numbers, and he'll say it's because the weather's too nice, or because Texas bribed them with barbecue. Ask him why businesses are packing up and heading east, and he'll mumble something about global forces, pandemics, or probably Mercury being in retrograde. For years, he's been playing dress-up as America's future leader, basking in the applause of coastal elites and Vanity Fair photographers. But when Kristi shows up with her rodeo-style reality check, the applause turns into laughter. And not the good kind. It's the kind of laughter you hear when someone tries to jump over a fence and faceplants in slow motion. And Gavin hates it. He hates that someone else...
We are not going away. We are staying here to liberate this city from the socialist and the burdensome leadership that this governor and that this mayor have placed on this country.
Outside the California bubble is pulling back the curtain. He hates that Kristi doesn't play the game of polite half-truths and glossy speeches. She just calls it like she sees it, a governor obsessed with aesthetics, presiding over a state that looks like the world's most expensive cautionary tale. It's not the vision of a future president, it's the blooper reel of a political influencer who forgot that policies matter more than photo shoots. What really seals the comedy is Gavin's endless overconfidence. He struts around like he's already booked his ticket to the Oval Office, as if all of America is begging to live under his leadership. But Kristi forces everyone to look at the fine print: homelessness at record highs, businesses bailing, wildfires raging, and crime rates that make people nostalgic for the Wild West. Kristi, on the other hand, is pointing straight at the flames and saying, "This guy wants to manage the whole country." He can't even manage his own backyard without it turning into a pyrotechnic display. The image is so ridiculous, it's almost unfair, like watching someone try to convince you they're a master swimmer while thrashing in a kiddie pool. The kicker.
Into the news to be like, my family, my friends are all terrified. Did something happen to you? Are you going to be okay? Well, wait, what was this cryptic and menacing comment? Well, we showed it to you yesterday. It was put out by Gavin Newsom's press office. It was this: Kristi Noem is going to have a bad day today. You're welcome, America. And as we showed yesterday, it was because he was signing a bill that was going to stop ICE from masking while terrorizing the people of California. That's it. And Noem is freaking out like, everybody thought I was about to be murdered. Everybody thought that was it for me.
Kristi doesn't even have to exaggerate. The facts alone are brutal enough. California's population loss, economic chaos, and policy failures speak louder than any speech Gavin could deliver. All Kristi has to do is hold up the mirror, and Gavin's reflection does the roasting for her. Here's the politician who turned America's most glamorous state into a punchline, and he still thinks it's a qualification for higher office. By the time Kristi's done, Gavin looks less like a future president and more like a reality TV contestant who overstayed his welcome. The California dream has become the California meme. And no amount of hair gel is going to slick over that truth. Watching him squirm under Kristi's spotlight is pure entertainment, proof that sometimes the most effective takedown doesn't come from another polished politician, but from someone who doesn't mind calling a spade, even if it ruins Gavin's carefully staged photo.